My name is Allison Gleichman. I teach 8th grade language arts at Niver Creek Middle School in Adams 12 5-star schools. Inquiry Quest is a great project that the district has developed. I think it really prepares kids well for the future. One of the things it does is in 8th grade, it gives kids the chance to choose a topic and really spend an extended amount of time researching it. So today, we're going to be forming the questions for our Inquiry Quest projects. I think it's a really unusual experience in 8th grade to be able to get this kind of depth into a project. I think that's something that often doesn't happen for kids until they're in high school. To spend 2 months on a project when you're 14 years old, researching it, really living it, I think is something that really prepares them well for high school, college, and the eventual workforce. Today, you're going to choose the issue you want to focus on, and you're going to form a question that you want to answer. When we first learned we were going to be doing Inquiry Quest, I thought it sounded pretty massive, potentially overwhelming, but a great opportunity to really get kids to explore something that they wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do in a typical classroom with a typical curriculum. This was my second year doing Inquiry Quest, and we definitely made some changes from the first year. We started doing weekly Socratic seminars at the beginning of the year so that the students had an opportunity to learn about different issues in the world, things they might not have already been exposed to. Even though these students are 13 and 14 years old, and some people might not think they're prepared to deal with these really pretty major issues, they are. So we decided to structure the project this year having students choose a problem in the world and then decide how to solve it. When students were trying to come up with their topics, most of them did it pretty easily. I think having done the Socratic seminars and having talked about these different issues really helped them to think about what some of the issues were in the world. We did a lot of brainstorming as a class to come up with the different topics. A lot of them chose issues that they see in their lives, that they see around them every day, whether they chose teenage pregnancy because they'd had an older sister who'd been a teenage parent, or whether they chose the violence currently occurring in Mexico because they have relatives there. Some of them chose topics that they didn't know much about, that they'd heard were issues, but they wanted to learn more about, like obesity.
Why is obesity a problem in the world, and what are some solutions?
I think Inquiry Quest does a lot to really prepare students as critical thinkers. When you're doing the research, you have to be able to think about who's giving you the information. Having students evaluate where the information is coming from is something that's going to be incredibly helpful to them with anything they do. All right, so go ahead and get started on your research. Thinking about who is this person, why are they telling me this, is it somebody I can really trust? Inquiry Quest also does wonderful things for students as problem solvers. When you're researching and you can't find exactly the answer you look for, you have to start thinking about, okay, well, what are other keywords I can try? If I'm getting stuck here, well, what do? I have to be able to solve these issues. I can't just always rely on somebody else to do it for me. Inquiry Quest is such a big project that you have to be constantly assessing. The Inquiry Quest sheet that the district provided builds in a lot of opportunities to assess how students are doing with it. You have to be doing formative assessment on a daily basis to make sure that kids are keeping up with things. We run language arts in Adams 12 as reading writing workshop. One of the sort of premises of that is that during student work time, you're learning about your students as learners. Inquiry Quest involves a ton of student work time in which you really have to be going around and talking to kids and seeing where they are. You really have to spend a lot of time conferring with them, whether it's a 30-second check-in or whether it's a 5-minute sit down and problem solve and figure out where to go next. I think Inquiry Quest is a wonderful tool to help students learn for 21st century learning rather than just learning in the 21st century. The fact that they get to choose issues that they care about that again aren't part of just the typical curriculum, the critical thinking that they do with evaluating where sources come from, who they can trust, the creativity that comes into it. It even incorporates collaboration because even though it's an individual project, there's a lot of working together to support the people you're next to. If you get stuck on research and coming up with keywords, there's one teacher in the classroom. If you can't go to your peers and ask for help, you're going to be spending a lot of time sitting there with your hand up, waiting for somebody to get around to you. When I saw their final products, when they got up and they made their presentations and they talked about why they'd chosen these topics and they showed their movies and they answered the judges' questions afterwards, I was deeply, deeply proud of my students. I was proud of how hard they had worked. I was proud of how honest they were. I was proud of the amount of time they had put into these. I would say the vast majority of my students came in after school, took things home, went to the public library to really make sure they were getting things done at a level that they were satisfied with, which meant that it was, of course, a level I was satisfied with. I think the videos they created definitely had an impact beyond just me and the students who made them. Presenting them publicly in the way we did, having outside judges come in, was impactful for those people. The advice I would give a teacher who's going into a process like this for the first time is trust your kids. They're going to get the work done. You're going to push them. You're going to need to, and you're going to have high expectations of them because otherwise they're not going to. Know that there's going to be issues. The technology is going to fall apart at points, and you're going to have moments where you can't save anything or where you can't find what you're looking for, but you're going to get through it. Make sure that you build in more time than you think you need because it's a big project and it takes longer than you really expect it to. As difficult as this project can be, as frustrating as it will be at moments for both you and for the kids, it's incredibly worth it. At the end, when you're all done, when they've gotten through this and they've created these amazing projects, it's all worth it.